Welcome everybody on the call. Today or this afternoon, we'll be talking about migrating from legacy tools to Datadog seamlessly with RapDev. My name's Rich Upshall. I'm a director of engineering here at RapDev, where I've been in this position for a couple of years. I'm also joined by George, if you'd like to say hi.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. Hello, everyone. My name is George Morgan. I am a partner solutions architect with our technical solutions team at Datadog. I've been with Datadog for about almost 4 years now. So my role is basically supporting a lot of our channel partnerships, as well as our alliance partnerships with some of our public cloud partners.
Perfect, thank you. So just from a housekeeping side, this session is indeed being recorded and will be shared out afterwards. I believe the chat is currently closed, but if you do have any questions, feel free to ask them in the Q&A section. Myself and George will keep an eye on them. And if there are any questions along the way, feel free to drop those in there and make this session a little bit more interactive. But as I said, it's being recorded and will be shared out afterwards. So just a quick agenda of what we'll be going through over the next 35, 40 minutes or so. We'll do a quick introduction of both RapDev and Datadog. We'll take a look into why organizations are moving from legacy tools into the Datadog ecosystem. And then we'll dive into how migrations work, the benefits of migrating with our RapDev's help. We'll dive into some of the improved capabilities within the visibility space from Datadog and George, and then wrap up with a few success stories, and then there will be plenty of time at the end to go through any questions from those of you on the call. So to get things started, and by way of introduction of RapDev, who are RapDev? We are one of Datadog's premier partners. We've also been Partner of the Year for the last 3 years running, and we're the current Marketplace Partner of the Year. But more importantly, we're a team of practitioners just like you on the call. I was once a customer of Datadog, and our founding team were also one of the largest Datadog customers as well. And we realized that between the Datadog and ServiceNow space, there was a lot of knowledge that we could impart on other Datadog customers or future Datadog customers to help them get onboarded onto the platform in the right way, in the most successful way. During our 5 years of existence, we've done over 200 Datadog implementations throughout the world, so in the US, but also EMEA, and a little further flung places as well. We don't just do implementations, though. We also have a number of integrations on the Datadog Marketplace as well. So if you go into the platform, go down to integrations and into the Marketplace, you will find our suite of integrations available to make for you to make use of. And lastly, and most importantly, we have no financial conflict of interest with Datadog. We don't take any revenue from them. We don't resell license fees. We're just here to help customers get up to speed with Datadog and see the success that they can achieve with the platform. So George, over to you for a quick intro of who Datadog are.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Rich. So basically, a few things on this slide. Obviously, there's a lot of information on this slide. I'm not going to go step by step just because, I don't want to spend a lot of time. But just to give you an idea, one thing I want to mention that's not on this slide is basically, at the end of the day, Datadog is a SaaS-based observability platform that's built and it supports multiple different types of environments, whether they be public cloud, on-prem, hybrid, or any combination of the two. But basically, if we're looking at this slide, just some major things to just call out right off the bat. We are almost a $3 billion a year company. Right now we're at 2.68. We're seeing consistent year-over-year growth. We have 30,000 or so customers all over the world. We have about 6,500 employees scattered across 33 different countries. And if you look at the top right, while we are an observability company, we do, and we've focused a lot of our initial capabilities around observability, whether it's infrastructure, application monitoring, database monitoring, so on and so forth. We've also made a lot of strides into areas like cloud security, cloud service management, software delivery, and basically, keeping the consistent look and feel of that same Datadog platform so that you can basically have the kind of like that single source of truth. Now, just taking it a step further on the next slide, if we look at the Datadog DNA, traditionally, we've been around since 2010. The one thing that has remained consistent, throughout our lifetime is this concept here on the lower left-hand side. Might be a little bit hard to read, but it's that real-time unified data platform. So like I said before, having that single source of truth for all your observability needs. And then over time, what we've done is, we started off with infrastructure monitoring in 2012. After that, we looked at application performance monitoring, or APM. Then we looked at log management, and we basically used that as our initial three pillars of what we call the three pillars of observability, and being able to show our partners, the customers, that you have the ability at your fingertips to see all of these different data points and correlate across those three areas, so you have kind of like that single pane of glass. And then, as you can see over the years, we've not only reinforced a lot of those initial features or initial products around infrastructure, APM, and logs, but we've added additional capabilities around real user monitoring, synthetic monitoring. We've made a lot, like I mentioned before, a lot of investments in security, whether it's cloud security, application security, SIEM. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail a little bit further in the presentation around some of our security offerings, but just wanted to highlight those. And not only that, but continuing on into last year and in the future, we're putting a lot of our efforts not only around security, but AI ops, AI ML, as well as basically what we call closing the loop, leveraging tools like that are around service management. So a lot of our incident management type capabilities, case management, and not only that, but automation, workflow automation. So traditionally, as an observability company, we've always focused on giving you the metrics, allowing you to create dashboards, allowing you to create alerts and notifications. But as we're going forward, and we've made a lot of the, additional improvements in the past year or so, having automated ways to remediate a lot of those findings. And, we're continuing to build on those types of capabilities as we move forward. So.
Oh, perfect. And almost most importantly, who are you on the call? I always find webinars a little bit, nobody knows who's on the call. We're not sat in a room together. So to give you an idea of who is on this call, it's both RapDev and Datadog customers, as well as potential prospects as well. Everybody has a varying degree of Datadog knowledge, from either highly experienced people who have been maybe using the tool for a number of years, to those who are just potentially starting their Datadog journey. And crucially, at various stages of unique migrations. No migration is the same. There's always different nuances. And there are various people on the call, from front-end developers, back-end developers, SREs, senior management people as well, who are just at those different stages of migration, whether it's scoping out what a successful migration could look like, or at the back end of one, just consolidating those final pieces into one platform. So let's take a look at why we see customers, why we at RapDev see customers moving away from legacy tools. It's a conversation that we find we're having time and time again at the moment, especially with some of those more recent acquisitions into larger companies, thinking about Splunk here, AppDynamics, for example, going under the Cisco umbrella. And some of the main concerns that we're hearing is high ingestion costs of data. So maybe those larger scale contracts, which were a little bit all that you can eat, no cap in terms of the usage of that platform, and that platform has proliferated through the organization. Everybody's pumping all of their data into the platform, and guess what? Your contract has changed up on you. You're now being charged consumption-based costings, and then suddenly all of those costs begin to kind of go through the roof. We also hear a lot around infrastructure maintenance overhead. So whether you're using open source tooling, you're having to stand up something like an Elastic cluster to be able to handle some of that data. It really does become a bit of a maintenance and a bit of a bottleneck on some of those SRE or infrastructure teams. We also see alongside that performance bottlenecks at scale. Many of these platforms are aging. They've been around for quite a while, and none of them were initially built out to be able to handle the scale and complexity of applications and data that we're seeing currently in today's world. Only this morning, I was just talking with a customer who's ingesting, what was it, around 1 terabyte of logs per day, maybe even more actually. And being able to use something like Datadog where they are really, really confident in the fact that Datadog can handle those scales and allow them to grow over the next coming months and years. On the visibility side of things, those limited real-time analytics are really beginning to show their face here. So whether you're looking at something like a Zabbix, which is what I came from, where you're trying to load up some of these logs and metrics, maybe open up a dashboard and wait 5-10 minutes for that data to load, and then realizing you need to change the time period that you're looking into, reload that dashboard. And I used to go away and make a cup of coffee and come back and wait for that dashboard to load. Really, really does hurt that mean time to resolve and mean time to detect and mean time to resolve some of those issues. Alongside that, and thinking around Splunk in particular, we often hear around complex querying and alerting, making use of those in-house query languages, Splunk query language, New Relic query language, for example, makes it very tricky for people to be able to easily find the logs and the data they're looking for. And in fact, many organizations will also say to us, we ask a central team to build a dashboard for us, and we can't get that instantly. We have to go and put it in a backlog. Maybe 2 weeks later, they'll have that dashboard ready for us. But you know what? That incident has happened. That time's gone, and we really didn't get to the bottom of things quickly. And that brings us on to the final point here of a reliance on in-house experts, whether that's because of the way that they set the tool up, specific ways of setting up agents, or little nuances here and there, or within the platform, as I say, querying that data, having to rely on experts to be able to build out those complex dashboards. This is where some of that simple but not simplistic messaging that we often hear from Datadog really comes in. The ability to search for logs quickly and easily, for example, the ability to correlate, and then at the end of the day, not needing an expert to create those dashboards, or using drag and drop and auto suggest to pull those metrics and data points in. But why are we seeing a massive uptick in customers wanting to migrate away from those legacy tools right now? The first one here, and it's a very big point, is that cost-effective, scalable log management solution that Datadog provides. Quite often people come in with a slight misconception that Datadog logs are expensive. They are if you use them wrong. If you take that legacy mindset of, oh, just throw all of your logs into Datadog and it will be fine, yes, it will be expensive. But, and we'll dive into this a little bit later, Datadog has a number of offerings available for you to make intelligent decisions around what logs to keep and collect. There is no point collecting hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of logs that all say the same thing, or maybe web server info logs, for example, 200s. they don't add any business value to you. So collect metrics from them, but don't index them, and don't have those as a chargeable element. We're also seeing real-time monitoring with AI-driven insights becoming more and more important. Obviously, AI is a massive buzzword at the moment, but in order to drive that, you need that real-time monitoring, the ability to be able to have a log or a trace or a metric produced at the source and being visible within a platform in as near real time as possible, if not real time. And that's the advantage a SaaS-based solution like Datadog provides. Whereas, as I said, some of those legacy tools, they'll often have to ingest a bulk of metrics and then index them, then have something go over and process those. And it will do it in batches, which leads to maybe 5-10 minutes worth of delay in terms of those monitors and those displays back to the user. Being fully cloud native, having a fully cloud native solution is just a dream to many people. Not having to manage infrastructure, go out and put out purchase orders for new disks or new CPUs as your monitoring requirements get bigger and bigger as you're looking to pull in more data. Just being able to kind of post it up to the cloud and kind of forget about it, which gives you, combined, that gives you that faster troubleshooting ability, as I said, with that unified observability. You saw from the slide that George took us through a moment ago, the new areas that Datadog is getting into around security and compliance has really brought a new audience into Datadog. It's allowed the security teams to sit alongside developers, infrastructure, and operations teams to really come together into a single platform. And that has opened up the gates to people looking to move away from the combination of AppDynamics and Splunk, where you would traditionally have the application owners in AppDynamics, security in Splunk, not really finding a single tool to coalesce onto. And now with these new offerings and these new advancements, that single pane of glass is now available. We've already spoken around the simple to create dashboards and alerts and flexible options, but all of this culminates together in a much faster usable experience, both in terms of faster in solving issues, but faster from a usability point of view, from a wide range of people across the organization, not just individual silos. So this is why we're seeing people migrate now. These are the conversations that I'm finding I'm having with customers day in, day out at the moment. And over our experience over the past few years, we've built out some best practices for going through a migration. We know it's scary. It is a very scary process to sit down and almost re-architect from the ground up. So we've put together a program for our customers that we take them through in terms of how to do these migrations. And this slide here kind of encapsulates the starting points that customers will have in their minds. So the first point here is just to assess the current usage. What usage of your existing observability tools are you using? What are you underutilizing? What are you maybe over relying on? Perhaps you're using logs as a way of finding out what's happening throughout an application. Maybe you should be using something like application tracing, for example. But at the end of the day, just do that assessment of your current usage. How many dashboards are being used? How many monitors? How many teams are using it? So you've got something to work with. The next most important thing is to define those key migration objectives. Is it you just want to move everything onto one platform and that's it? Or are there key metrics that you want to be looking at, such as reducing downtime, reducing time to detect issues, whatever it may be? List those out, because those are the things you're going to use to measure the success of this migration. We can then go into mapping those alerts and dashboards and alerts in your current tooling into Datadog dashboards. Quite often, and I've seen it before, where we've had customers with tens of thousands of dashboards in their existing tooling. They've been using those tools for years and years and years. Nobody cleans up after themselves. Everybody's kind of building and testing out dashboards. Don't migrate everything. When you move house, you don't bring everything with you. You go through a process of selling things off or taking things, throwing things out. Do the exact same here. There's no point in bringing all of that baggage with you. It's a good chance to reset and begin to think more dynamically around building out team-related dashboards, for example. When we're talking about Splunk specifically, this is where we begin to look at setting up log pipelines and optimizing ingestion. So we're using the tooling available to you to be able to think really intelligently around what logs we're capturing and how we're storing those. And again, we'll dive into that a little bit later. The final one here before the validation here is how are you going to go through that migration process? Are you going to go a big bang day one, you're on this platform, and the next morning you're completely on another platform? That's wonderful in theory, but it's not something that we've seen run as a successful way of doing things too often. There are cases where that has worked. We always recommend running a hybrid model just before that full transition, so you can fall back on those existing dashboards if some things aren't quite right, or maybe rely on some of that alerting in the original tooling, whilst some of those AI models are training themselves on the new data coming into Datadog. And then finally, validate and fine tune. So this is kind of the methodology that customers will take themselves through. And these are the common things that we hear around why migrations fail when customers try to do it themselves. On the left-hand side, we see kind of the reasons, and on the right-hand side, we see the source, why those things happen. So first and foremost, we see no clear migration strategy. People haven't really kind of taken the time to sit down and understand the landscape of the teams using, or business units using the tooling. They may look at one team and assume that's how everybody else is using the platform and go ahead and do the migration based on a limited data set. We see data inconsistencies happening. Maybe things aren't coming in quite the right way. Maybe they're being translated. We see downtime and alerting failures. We'll see things being missed. We'll see alerts triggering hundreds of times an hour and people sticking their fingers in their ears, muting that alert, and things getting missed. We've already touched on it once before, but we'll see unexpected costs being one of the big things that customers run into when they migrate onto Datadog on their own. They haven't understood or fully appreciated some of those areas around sort of logs or custom metrics, trace retention, where costs can get quite big quite fast because they haven't learned how to use that tool. They haven't understood the mind shift change that needs to happen. We also see security misconfigurations happening and ultimately slow adoption as well. They'll hope that multiple teams are going to get onboarded really quickly, but it really, really doesn't happen. And all of this leads to, as we kind of spoken through here, misaligned expectations, missing logs. Some of those critical elements of observability may not be there as and when you need it. This increases risks of incidents, and a lack of ingest optimization leads to those increased costs. Compounded onto that with those compliance risks and engineers struggling with those new workflows leads to poor migrations and ultimately failed migrations. From a business level, this leads to potentially lost revenue, a lot of wasted time in terms of the whole of the lead up to that migration, the actual deployment. It opens up security risks, and we've touched on it a few times, but that really high risk of uncontrolled costs. And this is where we at RapDev can really come in and help you out. As I said, we've been through this hundreds of times. We've taken all of the learnings from all of the projects that we've done over the years together to really define a structured migration roadmap from every single tool that we've seen out there in the wild onto Datadog. Each and every migration we do, we take customers through a tagging strategy workshop. Tags within Datadog are the most important thing to get right. It's what drives alerting, dashboards. It's what drives cost optimization. And it's a very different way of thinking about things where you've come from those legacy tools, which are very much host-based and don't rely on tags. So we'll take you through a workshop through there. We are security first. We have a security first approach. We have a separate managed SOC available to customers to make use of as well. But we take security very, very seriously here at RapDev, and we align everything we do to your business goals. We make sure that every crucial piece of data comes into the platform correctly, and we go through and validate that. And we have a hands-on team available to do these migrations for you, based entirely within the US. And as I said, we've done this a number of times. We've got a few logos up here of where we've done this really successfully before. PayPal being probably one of ours and Datadog's combined biggest accounts here, but also MyFitnessPal, Stitch Fix, Mercedes-Benz in the EU, and a major healthcare and manufacturing provider as well. And throughout these migrations, on average, we've seen a 32% cost saving when customers have migrated onto Datadog. So with our help, we've actually seen those observability bills drop quite dramatically, and we provide that safety and assurance that you really aren't going to run into those cost concerns that are quite often thrown at Datadog. So this is where we've done it successfully, but how do we actually do these migrations? This is a quick high-level overview of that roadmap that we take our customers through. We break it down into 5 phases. First of all, we spend a little bit of time going through discovery with you. We understand what your organization looks like, what it's looking to achieve, and breaking down how we are going to do that migration in the most or least obstructive way. We'll go through a foundations phase, which is where we'll do that tagging workshop. We'll do that analysis of your existing tool set, and then we'll build out API scripting to be able to do the majority of this migration. We rely heavily on automation because we know that automation reduces that risk of human element errors being introduced. So everything is tested, everything is automated where we can to allow a very swift and easy migration into Datadog. Within phase 2, this is where we do that analysis on both log sources and dashboards and look to condense that large volume of alerts and dashboardings down into a much more reduced number of dashboards within Datadog, using those tags to allow you to pivot the data set around so you can condense maybe 100 dashboards into a single usable dashboard within Datadog. We then go through the actual migration. So going into phase 3 and 4 is where we roll out that automation to set up the log configurations. We get the agent rolled out. We get the data coming into Datadog. We get those dashboards and monitors aligned within phase 4. And then we're there through the final phases of the cutover support, make sure that that's a successful transition over. And at the end of the day, at the end of that phase 4, this is where we train you and your organization how to use Datadog and how to own the tool going forward. We don't want to be left holding on to you and running your environment for you. We want to pass all of that knowledge on to you so you can be successful in your own right in the future. After that, and after the platform's bedded in for a month or two, we'll come back and look at log optimization, go through some of those pipelines, make sure everything is being collected efficiently, and then look at any further consolidation and iteration from there. So it's a really well-defined roadmap. How long is up to the complexity of the organization and how many tools are being used currently. So we've spoken about logs, and this slide just illustrates some of those thought processes we take our customers through. On the left-hand side of this diagram, this is where we would see customers throwing in 20,000 million logs into something like Splunk, and they'll come to Datadog and they will go, yeah, we'll just throw everything in there. Don't do that. It will be expensive and it will just be noise. This is where, as I say, you can use the tools available to you within Datadog and our knowledge and experience of being able to take a look at something like a Java application log and maybe immediately available triage logs, keep for 7 days, but only keep a portion of those. So those error logs and those real important logs, keep in there. For anything long-term with a longer-term debug, maybe keep a little longer. If you're looking at compliance needs, you may need to keep some of those logs for a larger period of time. But crucially, don't keep all of the logs for 30 days. Keep most of them for 7 days. That will help really decrease those costs. For anything else where there's rare queries, for example, what did my customer do? What did George do 3 months ago that resulted in him having some sort of issue? Don't keep that in a hot index. Use Datadog Flex logs to store those logs in a kind of warm storage and do those queries at a much cheaper rate. And then finally at the bottom here, fully exclude those logs that add absolutely no business value. Don't index them, don't pay for them, but if there are numerical values in there that are important, convert those into metrics. As I say, this is just part of a wider series of conversations we have with customers to really help handhold them through those concerns around costs and make sure that that migration into Datadog is as successful as it can be, whilst increasing the return on value that the customer experiences. But that's enough for me for now. Let's hand it over to George and hear how Datadog really helps you level up in a little bit more detail.
Great, great. Thank you, Rich. And I have to say, RapDev in general is uniquely positioned. As you can see from their phase migration approach, they, like Rich said, RapDev has deep experience in these types of migration efforts. And especially when we're talking about log complexity, you mentioned Flex logs. I'm going to be talking about that here in a little bit. But let's go ahead and jump right in. So in terms of how Datadog is going to help you level up, this is going to be primarily around these 4 main topics. And I'm just going to talk about them at a high level and then start to kind of peel back the onion and start talking about some of the underlying capabilities, the underlying features within Datadog that are going to help support a lot of these different topics. So Rich mentioned mean time to detection and mean time to resolution, which is a key metric, especially 2 key metrics that we track in the observability space to allow you to see that that benefit of cutting down on the time it takes to address something if it goes sideways. And that's through the first topic here. That's the unified observability with logs, metrics, and traces. So this is kind of one of our foundational value props that we've talked about many years ago when we first started incorporating a lot of those types of capabilities across our infrastructure, log, and application monitoring products. No different in this situation, especially during a migration. That's going to be kind of a lot of the things that you're going to be looking at within the single pane of glass. And that's also going to be reinforced by, again, the tags that that Rich mentioned before. Second topic is obviously AI is a hot topic. So we do have a lot of capabilities around AI, our AI ML engine called Watchdog. So being able to surface a lot of anomalies, outliers, and doing predictive forecasting to help you stay kind of one step ahead when it comes to addressing any issues and when it comes to troubleshooting. Cost-effective log storage. Rich mentioned flex logs, so we now have an additional log flex tier, which gives you just an additional capability, additional proactive capability to have a lot of more control over not only the cost of your logs or how you're thinking about retaining your logs and which ones you retain for kind of like a hot retention storage versus medium versus cold. And then not only that, but wrapping everything around kind of the security monitoring and compliance capabilities that we offer. I'll talk about briefly what some of those are. Obviously, having a discussion on security is its own separate webinar, but I will definitely, double click on those and make sure that you understand what are some of those aspects. So now when we're looking at the actual Datadog innovations, this is, we talked about the 4 topics. Now this is where we start talking about the innovations themselves that align with those. So number 1, flex logs. So being able to have additional flexibility when it comes to, retention, control of your log retention costs, observability pipeline. So this is a very powerful tool, very easy to use as well, that is going to help you. It's going to help DevOps, security teams to do a aggregation and processing of your logs within your own environment before, and then you can then route them to other cloud platforms, SIEM tools, data lakes, before, if you're not ready to move all your logs right away to Datadog, you can use observability pipelines to migrate them or route them accordingly, and then do any kind of transformation before then. Log workspaces, that's another feature that is going to provide additional capabilities. If you want to get a little bit more complex when you're analyzing your logs, if you want to basically compare data sets between your logs, if you want to incorporate some SQL querying, you also have the ability to use data sets from CSV files. So this is going to give you a really good platform to kind of experiment and see, before I migrate, what if I were to compare these different columns between these 2 different tables? Do I want to incorporate something like a data obfuscation, which is available within the platform as well? And not only that, but talking about that whole correlation of metrics and traces, this is going to be, again, the capability, leveraging those tags that you would have configured in the platform to basically give you that greater sense of correlation, being able to drill down really quickly to your different metrics, traces, and logs, and basically identify anything. When something goes sideways, you need to basically get to the bottom of things really quickly, and that's going to give you that capability. So now if we go to the next slide, we are looking at flex logs. So just basically, this is, I'm only going to say a few things there. This is a very sparse slide, but basically flex logs is a way to decouple not only your storage, but from your compute. So you basically have the ability to realize some low storage costs associated with, when you're storing your logs, especially when it comes to flex logs. But you also have the ability to identify what kind of computing, the Datadog is obviously going to be the location where those flex logs will be kept. So being able to identify the instance size to on the computing side, that's going to give you just another level of flexibility to basically give you the ability to not only have another way you can store your logs, but also keep costs under control.
I
And
think
now, yep.
just to jump in, I think one important point here around flex logs, or one important use case, is quite often customers, as I say, migrating for Splunk, will often be concerned and really quite scared around, I don't want to lose some of the logs. I want to keep the logs because I think I need them. And Flex logs is a really great option of being able to store the majority of those logs where you think you need them, but you can't quite articulate why.
Yep.
You put them in Flex logs, keep them at that lower storage tier, and then maybe in 2, 3 months' time, analyze, did anybody actually query those logs? If not, get rid of them entirely.
Yeah, or put them off to cold storage. Yeah, absolutely. Good call out, Rich. And if we're and just to sort of highlight the fact, and this kind of, supplements the previous slide from Rich, just to get an idea of what are some of the, the use cases where, flex storage might be useful. So if you wanted to, retain logs for long-term auditing, if you wanted to retain logs for compliance or legal reasons, if you have like certain security logs that you want to be able to retain for, future investigations, or if you need to query logs for, reporting and analytics at a future time. But as you can see, obviously, the way that I sometimes think about it is indexing is kind of like your hot retention storage, flex logs is your warm, archiving. Obviously, that's when you are offloading a lot of those logs to your own buckets, either an S3 bucket, an Azure Blob, or a GCS. That's when you would use archiving. But this gives you a really good idea of what are some of those particular use cases when it comes to, storing your logs in Flex logs. And now if we look at, what does it look like? So basically, if you're familiar with the log management platform, you'll notice that when you're configuring your retention, you'll have a second option, as you can see here, which is called Flex Tier. So that's going to give you the ability to have a separate tier storage for those logs between 30 and 450 days. And then you can also, when you're leveraging or you're using the Log Explorer, you can toggle that log and include Flex Logs toggle to basically see that appear on the screen as well. So that's kind of a very straightforward, very easy way to get yourself started on Flex Logs. And if we're talking about what are some of the things that Flex Logs solve, obviously, we want to be able to consolidate the logs of any type of any source within the one platform. And then obviously having more flexibility when it comes to that retention, again, from 30 to 450 days. Again, interest here, staying on budget, making sure you are only keeping those logs in those particular storage where necessary, and then basically using querying those logs with kind of like the simple experience that if you've used log management in the past, it's very straightforward. There is another capability that you can leverage that I'm going to be talking here, I believe, in the next slide, but I'll go into that right now. So basically, Log Workspaces is going to be it's going to give you the ability to gain kind of like that enhanced control over your data, using kind of like this suite of capabilities where, you're going to be able to, identify different. So it's basically like a workspace where you're going to basically, aggregate levels of data. You're going to be able to join different data sets, be able to see things within the context of other data sets or other logs. And then basically, you'll also have the ability to add transformations. So if you want to, add certain processors and using SQL queries as well. So you can all do this within the platform. Obviously, don't have enough time today to go into kind of like the formatting and all that, but just know that, if you want to be able to have the flexibility to see all your log data, different data sets, compare and contrast before you actually perform any of those log migrations, Log Workspaces is going to be a great place to do so. Now, if we're switching over to the next capability, observability pipeline. So this is like I mentioned before, very powerful tool, very straightforward to use. And it's basically, it's going to allow you going to give you a good way to, if you have all this log data, all this information, you don't necessarily know right away where, when you're ready to move it to Datadog, you want to get an idea of, what are some of the things, if you want to be able to move them to like an S3 bucket and then do some transformation there before you move it to Datadog, you can do that with observability pipelines. So basically what you can do, there's some templates that are listed here. So you can basically do dual shipping of logs. You can split your logs. You can generate your metrics from logs. Get more fine-grained control over the overall log volumes. And what's neat about the platform is that there's a design aspect of it. So you're basically setting up all the tiles and you're setting up your different dual shipping or split logs. And then what you do is once you're ready, you click install and then it'll start performing those operations. So very powerful tool, very effective. If you just want to have greater control of where things are going within your logs, this is definitely something to keep an eye on. Datadog security, again, we have quite an extensive series of capabilities around security. So as you can see here in the top three, we've got 3 swim lanes, and the first 2, code security and cloud security, are what we consider kind of the vulnerability management products. So if you look at code security, we've got things like software composition analysis. So if you want to identify kind of software dependencies on your repositories, IAST, so that's more like runtime code analysis. So being able to identify vulnerabilities in first-party code. And then you've got things like static code analysis and so on. Not only that, but you also have cloud security. So it's going to cloud security through, IAC, cloud security posture management. CIM is cloud infrastructure entitlement management, so on and so forth. Cloud security is going to give you kind of like that real-time threat detection and it's going to allow you to do continuous configuration audits across the entire cloud. So a lot of really good capabilities that you can leverage. And when it comes to threat management, just to call out the last one, it's going to provide kind of like the additional level of security by, analyzing new and ongoing threats that may reside in your logs, your applications, your hosts. That's through our SIEM offering, our CWS or cloud workloads security platform, and ASM, application security monitoring. And not only that, but we have kind of like this concept of closing the loop. So being able to leverage a lot of our service management type capabilities, workflow automation, app builder, incident management, that's going to help, once these vulnerabilities are being identified, being able to get your teams in the know pretty quickly if there are open CVEs, if there are, any identified, injection attacks that have been identified, or any zero-day findings. That's how you're going to notify your team. That's how you're going to basically get up to speed and address those issues when they come up. And now when we're rounding out and we're talking about the Datadog migration plan, so this is kind of, this is, if anything, supporting kind of that phased approach, that phased migration approach that Rich called out earlier. When it comes to data migration plan, and this is how we view things as we're supporting our partners as they're going through a migration. Typically what we see are some migration concerns, which Rich has called out in many cases in much more detail that I'm covering here. But what's the best way to reroute, process, index logs? Another concern might be, I have so many dashboards, monitors. How can I scale them down? How can I consolidate them? And not only that, but how do I enable end users? And that's something that we work hand in hand with RapDev to make sure that they're in general, they're always ahead of the curve when it comes to Datadog enablement. So, but that's one of the things that we offer as part of our partnership. But basically, if you're following the path of the migration process, it's obviously automating that log ingestion, working with the partner, the existing Datadog tools to help, perform those kinds of log ingestion type capabilities, upgrading, optimizing alerts. There might be existing alerts, there might be existing dashboards that need to be looked at again. This is a great opportunity, leveraging that whole house cleaning concept that was mentioned before. This is a great opportunity to do so, and that's gonna allow us working with the partners to basically shine a light on that and start once the migration is complete, starting with a fresh look and a fresh start. Enabling end users, of course, getting I work really closely with RapDev so on multiple different enablement type of activities. No different here. This is kind of what we want to be able to do to make sure that, the partner has the necessary tools and capabilities to be successful. And not only that, but accelerate, that value adoption. So, looking in the future, looking after the migration, what are some of the things, obviously there are going to be a lot of lessons learned that come out of a migration, developing a long-term plan that might include additional enablement or, looking to incorporate additional features or capabilities. And then if in what we're looking at is, in terms of results, 3 to 4 months average timeline, obviously, that's all based on the customer requirements, dashboard consolidation, and then just helping partners, accelerate migration in any way that we can. So that
Yeah,
covers
perfect.
the migration plan for me.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things here is where RapDev kind of defines a large number of the best practices in terms of Datadog usage, and then obviously we follow those through each of those projects. That means when we get to the end of a migration project and we kind of hand it back over to the customer, they can very easily drop into the technical account manager program or the TAM program, further enablement sessions provided by Datadog, and Datadog know exactly what we've done. They know what they're looking at. There's no need for them to kind of re-educate themselves on what they're looking at. So it works really, really well where we just get everybody set up for success and then pass it over to the Datadog post-sales team to do that wider organizational enablement to make sure that the whole of those organizations level up as one.
Yep, absolutely.
Cool. So that's all George and I had today.